Thank you so much, and welcome everyone. We're so glad you could join us today as we cover this this topic, which is so important because let's face it, we as managers, we deal with this issue virtually every minute of every day. So I'm so glad you could join us because we're going to travel this journey together and help each other improve our management of our time, management of our tasks, prioritizing, all of these wonderful things. So to be certain, we're going to focus on four key objectives. We will describe the benefits of developing time management skills, and as we're doing that, we'll share a series of examples. We will also differentiate between the different types of tasks. As you'll see, we will group tasks into four separate categories, and we'll explain that as we travel today's webinar. Next, we will, I will analyze and demonstrate examples of tools that we can use to help us even more efficiently and more effectively organize our tasks. And finally, I'll share some proven rules and techniques which will help us all manage our time even more effectively. And I say that as someone who has been learning this and teaching this for, well, almost 20 years, and I am still learning and confirming new things every day. Okay, so let's start at the bottom here with a wonderful quote from Ed Bliss. Ed Bliss is a noted time management expert who once wrote among his many insights that effective people begin not with their work, but with their time. So if we start together at the bottom, we all at some point, probably and hopefully when we were young kids, we had no system. I'll remember that. Oh, you want to meet up like at the playground at 3 o'clock tomorrow? Okay, I'll see you there. And that would be it. Then as we were growing older, perhaps through our adolescent years, our teenage years, and possibly even into and through college and young adulthood, we all developed a degree of an ad hoc system. For examples, Post-it notes, strings on our finger, notes on the napkin. I'm still writing notes to myself. So many of us are possibly today still using some degree of an ad hoc system. But our ad hoc system is hopefully a very small component of our time management system. Then we progressed to where many of us, I'm not saying all of us, but many of us used a black book, which was our appointment book. And it was a little black book, that we would make entries into. I still remember putting details about my wedding into my appointment book so I would remember the dates and the times for things like getting fit for tuxedos and meetings with bands that we were interviewing to play at our reception. And also, though, many of us at some point started using a desktop calendar as an appointment book. Then we took it a step further, and I'd suggest that most of us, probably all of us, are here today with some sort of an efficiency-driven system. We use organizers, personal digital assistants, smartphones, Outlook, all of those. And so one of our overarching goals today is to help us all take all the tools we are currently using and adding what we'll call a mission focus to those tools. So the same tools you're already using with a greater degree of purpose, a greater degree of focusing on goals. And when we do that, when we focus on prioritizing and on goals, this allows us to make our current efficiency-driven system more of an effectiveness driven systems. So that is one of our overarching goals today, to help you be more effective in how you manage your time and your tasks. Okay, so today's webinar is in 4 sections or modules, and the first section we call changes and choices. And the principle you see quoted there is a borrowing of a quote from the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who once wrote, he, yes, the male pronoun, so we'll set that aside, the why. He wrote, he who knows why can get through almost any how. And so we've just updated that slightly, that knowing why we are doing something, knowing the purpose of our actions, knowing why what we are focusing on right now is a high priority, helps us get through the minutiae, the incredibly deep detail that we all have to deal with and work with. Okay, so a question here: how do you think we make most of our choices? Do we make our choices based on impulse? Do we make most of our choices based on conscious choice? Or do we make most of our choices based on pressure from others, by habit, and or by default? Well, psychology today has spent a great deal of time and energy. In fact, I can remember a very long time ago when I was a freshman or sophomore in high school, and one of our teachers who had his PhD in psychology was educating us by saying, you know, psychology today conducts studies like this all the time. And he said at the time, so maybe the numbers have changed slightly, but he said 9 out of every 10 decisions we make, we don't even have to think about. And we did not believe that. He has essentially suggested that 90% of our behavior was unconscious. And so psychology today conducts this survey, I think it's either every year or every 2 years. And they ask people, you know, on what basis do you make decisions, choices? And so the accumulation of all that knowledge has us arriving at understanding that we make about 2% of our choices based there in red, based on pressure from others. We make about 2% of our choices based on impulse. In orange, we make about 2% of our choices based on a default in our thinking. So that's 6%. And then approximately 9% of our choices we make consciously. And in case you're doubting that, just stay tuned for a moment and I'll share some additional insights into this. And psychology today has, through their research, through their studies, arrived currently at the conclusion that approximately 85% of our choices are made by habit. Well, again, you may still be doubting that, and that's fine. So let's help everyone come to a closer place together. I'll use several examples. The first one that comes to mind